Hey, Sean's here. Somebody needs to notify the Opry. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. This week, the Professional Noticer is sponsored by wisdomharbor.com. Today, families and school systems all over America are finding wisdomharbor.com's one-of-a-kind streaming service to be the perfect, low-cost, high-quality educational tool for their students. Wisdom Harbor's stated responsibility is to create the next greatest generation, starting with your hometown and your school system. For less than $3 a month per teacher, classrooms have access to original content, only found on wisdomharbor.com, that teaches, entertains, and builds character in young people while creating conversations between young people and the adults in their community. Utilizing video, audio, and the written word, content is delivered in small bites by Grammy winners, CEOs, comedians, chefs, best-selling authors like our guest today, and Hall of Fame speakers. There are even guitar lessons from an award-winning songwriter. Check it out today and join your friends and neighbors who are already a part of wisdomharbor.com. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And as you know, we love it when somebody can come to the table with observations. We like it when somebody has some answers. But when somebody comes to our peace table with both, it's just really a special show. And that's what we have today. This is no stranger to you guys. And he's back again with us here. One of my favorite people, one of my favorite writers. I don't even know how I can describe this guy. He's a writer, he's a musician, he's a speaker, he's a humorist, did I say musician? He's on the Grand Ole Opry all the time. Please welcome Sean Dietrich, Sean of the South. How are you doing, buddy?
Man, I am just great. If I was any better, I'd be you.
Yeah. Well, that'd be a step down for you. Hey, I'm excited. Just before we get started talking, I'm excited about your new book that's coming out, Over Yonder.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it too.
Have you already done the audio for it?
Yes. It took like 15 hours, like 15 hours, which is one of the quicker ones that I've done.
Yeah,
because I make a lot of mistakes. Because they'll have to stop me and say, "Where are you from?" We don't pronounce it that way.
Isn't it weird to do that? And I had a producer, I said something was like mischievous. And he stopped me and said, that's pronounced mischievous. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's like, I wrote it and I can't even pronounce it. So
there are so many of those words that we have that now have become part of my daily lexicon because they were told that I was told I was doing them wrong, and I have paid attention and figured out that no, I'm not doing them wrong because they've been on big budget films and stuff said that way. And one of the words is, whenever you reference the Pope, I would say, like a papal ceremony. Well, they said no, it's papal ceremony. And so that we went round and round on this. We looked it up on the internet, couldn't find any truth on the internet about it. You had 50% one way, 50% the other way. And so we finally went with papal. And I'm telling you what, I have heard that word everywhere I look now. And every time it is said papal.
Oh my gosh. My boys call my wife the grammar Nazi. And she's always after him about something. No, it's not you and me, it's you and I. I mean, she's always after him. And last week, I read something in the Bible, and God said that you and I will so and so. And I'm like, God did it. This was God doing it. You want to correct God? But that's just so funny to me. And it's just bizarre to me that you and I write and then
I don't know.
Can't pronounce some of the words we write.
Big time. There were several this last time, and I had to do, come back in Birmingham. I had to come back and re-record just single words. They say, yeah, that was, where are you from? That kind of thing.
Tell me about Over Yonder. Tell me about
Well,
the story.
well, I this is always tricky for me. I never know how much I want to give away because when I read a book, I don't know how much I want to know about it before I go into it. But what I
Right.
can tell you is, I guess all my books, I'm figuring out. I'm maybe the last one to the table, figuring out what I kind of who I am and what I am because I don't know. um, I'm figuring out that all my books have something to do with found family because that's the theme of my life.
Right.
So this book is about some unique individuals who have a pretty rough set of circumstances dealt to them, and they find each other, and they find that they're more family than sometimes family is.
Right. Right.
So anyway, and it's set in South Alabama, so it feels good to me. And
I've read about the characters. I went on Amazon and read about the characters, about the guy, one of your main characters stepped out of prison, planning on living out his years on a houseboat on the Alabama Gulf Coast, where I live. And he's a defrocked priest with a heart condition and an ex-wife who still runs his life. I mean, that is great right there. And then he connects with a teenager.
yeah,
Yeah, who is
I did a
pregnant.
lot of. I really enjoyed doing the research on this for the Episcopal tradition and the priesthood in that. So I have a lot of friends who are Episcopal priests. I'm not sure why that just worked out that way. And I have called them all, and we had all these long, deep conversations. And they were just wonderful. And so a lot of that was just a treat for me because I love to talk about those things. So a lot of that happened and came into the book, and that was fun.
That is awesome. Well, you fascinate me as a writer because you are so daggone prolific and so consistent with your daily blogs, and then you're still managing to write books. Man, is Jamie just like cracking the whip on you, or what's going on?
No, if she did, I'd probably stop. So that's part of the secret. When we first signed on with a publisher, we had a rule, and the rule was nobody from the publisher is allowed to talk or have any communication with Sean, period. Because if they do, he'll sense that as pressure. And if he senses pressure, he won't produce. He just, he'll sit down on act. He won't mean to. He's a little. Anyway, so Jamie was the one who would deal with all of that, deadlines, this. I had no idea that. And she would not tell me the deadlines. And because she wouldn't tell me, I always managed to deliver early, which was just fascinating. And then on one project, that was breached, and deadlines were told to me, and I couldn't finish on. I couldn't get it done. I couldn't do anything. It was like I locked up. Everything changed. So, I love what I have the privilege to do right now. I love it because I don't know. I've learned who I am. I'm learning who I am. I'm learning so much about me, about God, about all that. And so it doesn't feel like work. There are times when it does, but those are far and few between right now. And I'm lucky because I don't know how long that'll last. That might change. I love writing books because I mean, like you, probably one of the only people who could relate to this. You can get really immersed into it.
Yeah.
And that becomes a big part of your world. And when the book's over, when a fiction book's over for me, especially, I always cry when I'm done writing my last word. I always have this huge, and I love it when I do because it's a big release because those characters have lived in my brain for a year or 6 months. And they're all me. They're all a piece of me and my psyche. So when I'm saying goodbye to them, I'm saying goodbye to some people I love who have facets of my own, personality. And so it's
I know
hard.
exactly what you're talking about. Because because I mean, for you it'd be Jamie, for me it'd be Polly. to be at a dinner table with us and see a look in their eyes that they know we are with a couple of other people right then. You're thinking about, if she says this, how does he respond?
Yeah.
And they're like living with us. And then you
Yes.
finish the book, and now they move away, and
They're gone.
their cousins living on the other side of the country.
Yeah, exactly right. It's so true. And you dream about them, or I do. I dream about them. I see, you know, I see them and other people that I love. I see them in myself, the characters, and then you spend just so much time with them. And basically, what I'm doing is a grown-up version of playing with action figures. I put him here and I say, he said this, and she said this, and he
That's
said
a
this.
great way of putting it.
And I'm doing this over and over and over again. And now someone took my action figures away. So,
You know what? I think about, you and I have talked about this before. We are so strangely alike in many ways. The things that we grew up liking and the things that we still like. And,
yeah.
you and I are both Andy Griffith Show people, and we're both
Oh, yeah.
Alabama people and Bear Bryant people. And,
Yeah.
and I see something in your book that I have long thought about the Andy Griffith Show. I see something in a lot of your books, and that is that if you think about the Andy Griffith Show, Andy wasn't really the star. Barney wasn't really the star. It was the town. It was the town that was the star, which is why you could totally get rid of Andy and Barney and then do 3 more years of the town, Mayberry RFD.
That's so true.
And so you're writing.
Well, you're kind. I don't believe that for a minute.
No, it does. Your writing does bear toward that, which I think makes things last. Because as characters change, as people change, a place can generally stay the same. And to have that anchor in your mind as a main character, to have a place as a main character in your books, I think is brilliant, and it's tough to pull off.
One time I was at one of the Mayberry events that they do in my area. This one was, I surprised a friend who actually just passed away this year. He was going to Mayberry and he didn't know I was going to come hang out with him and meet him. And I surprised him there, and they did all this Mayberry stuff, and they did the meetup parties at the Mayberry Motor Inn right there in the middle of town. And part of the festivities was they had a guy come in from UNC and do a lecture on the Andy Griffith Show, and they've saved all his old scripts, and all his old scripts are still there. You can, if you use rubber gloves and you go into the special room, you can pull them out and see all of Andy's handwritten notes. Well, he would cross out any line or anything, any reference that made Mayberry seem like a place someone might not want to live. That was his one rule for the show. He said, no matter what we say, Mayberry has to be a place where everybody wants to come live in America. And so that was always at the forefront of his mind, the fact that you say that. And so anyway, that guy lectured about this, and I found that fascinating because I want to live in Mayberry. Heck, I do in my head.
Me too. And I find that very curious, because there is like here in Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, really kind of our town father was George Meyer. And down at when the early 1900s, he was just getting land however he could. I mean, he didn't have any money either, but he traded his car for like a 20-acre stretch on the lagoon, but he traded it to a farmer who was getting his stuff to the market, and the farmer's like, yeah, the land. I mean, you can't grow anything on it. And people would ask George, why are you doing this? And he said, because they're not making any more of this kind of land, and one day everybody's going to go to the water. Well, I tell you that just to say that a curious thing I found out recently, every church in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, every every building, George Meyer gave the land for that church to be built on.
Wow.
Every one of them. And his comment was, we're building a town here, and you may not want to go to church, but you don't want to live in a town that ain't got one.
Boy, that's so true.
Isn't that cool?
That's great. Yeah, I mean, going back to the book, what you just said, this is the first book I've written that kind of pays tribute to the southern Alabama Gulf Coast, which is a huge part of my formative life.
Right.
And I couldn't decide whether I wanted it to be Orange Beach or Gulf Shores, so I called it Gulf Beach. That's the name of the fictional town.
I think that's pretty good, buddy, because you know how people are down here. I mean, this has turned into this like kind of Dallas-Fort Worth thing. You know, you say to somebody, hey, are you from Dallas? No, I'm from Fort Worth. Are you from Minneapolis? I live in St. Paul. Okay.
Yeah.
And people are like that down here now. You say, you're from Gulf Shores? No, I'm from Orange Beach.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, one town has 8,000 people, one of them has 7,000 people. Good grief.
It's a special place. It really is.
Well, I cannot wait to read this book. Was there anything about it that you went, you know, I'm just curious about your process. When you start writing, do you know the ending?
No, I know a lot of guys do. The ending like the ending of the whole book or the ending of the chapter?
Yeah. Do you know how it's going to end up?
No. It really is like playing with action figures and Barbie dolls for me. And I don't know where they're going to take me with what they're going to do. And I trust them more than I trust myself, because every time I try to impose an outline, I've tried it like twice. Anytime I've tried to impose an outline or an idea, it always goes astray real fast. And then I
hate that. I hate outlines.
Yeah, everything I do is kind of improvisational. But about midway through, I'll see the writing on the wall and I can see kind of where I think it's going. And I'm not always right. And then I kind of start writing to that. But again, this book proved me wrong in several ways, just like the one before. So I was writing toward what I thought was the end, and that's not how it ended. So anyway, the last book that I wrote, this is where I really felt like, and this is I've not spoken with many people. You're one of the few I could probably talk about this with. But the last book that I wrote, and I probably shouldn't talk too specifically about it because then it would give away a plot point. But there are many things in the book that I wrote, and then about a year later, they happened to me in startling detail. And that led me to wonder, what's really going on while we're writing? What's really happening? And I have talked with other authors and artists about this, and the amount of people who've experienced similar things, it's staggering. They all have said, yeah, we were writing about this, we focused on this, and then that happened. What about you?
Yeah, I've had, you talked about crying when you finished a book. When I wrote a book called The Lost Choice, and in that book, there's a whole couple of chapters on the Lusitania. And I was writing in a friend's cabin by myself, middle of the night, and I was so, it was like I was there. And man, I started crying, and I could not stop crying. And I don't even have to read that. I think about that and think about how real that seemed. And then when I wrote The Traveler's Gift, I had David Ponder at Gettysburg standing up on a big rock with Joshua Chamberlain. and with this part of the wall going this way, this part of the wall going this way. And so I was in the middle of writing that book, and I had written the Chamberlain part, but had not written the Lincoln part, which is also at Gettysburg. And Polly and I were up there. I was speaking at the Hershey thing there, and so we went over to Gettysburg for a day. Now, you know, a day won't do it at Gettysburg,
Yeah.
but it had to do it for us. And so we were driving around, and it was just like miles and miles and miles of trails and stuff. And I thought, I'll never figure out where this stuff is. But we looked up a hill, and I said to Polly, I said, pull over right here. So you see those rocks up there through those woods? That's what I was imagining when I was imagining the, Little Round Top and that charge against Chamberlain. That's what I was imagining. And I looked at it and I said, let's get out here. Let's look at this. And so as we were about to walk up the hill, a ranger came by, and I said, hey, what is this right here? And he said, that's where Joshua Chamberlain, had his stand. And I was like, really? Okay, well, so then we walked on up, and I'm looking at this, and there's this monster rock right in the middle of the wall. And I'm just standing there. Polly said, what are you doing? And I said, I swear I thought I made this up.
Wow.
I swear I thought I made the rock up.
Wow.
I must have seen a picture of it somewhere or something. And this was, I wrote that before the internet.
Yeah,
and
right.
So I had all my research books, every book. I went back, I looked through everything. I couldn't find a mention of that rock. I couldn't find a picture of it. And I sat right there in my little cabin, and that came real to me. And I described it perfectly. So,
well, the same thing for me. Same thing. I was at a little one room Airbnb that we rented that was a mile from my house. So I would go there and I'd write, and I'd walk a mile to go have supper with Jamie, and I'd go back and I'd write again. So I'd be real quiet, real silent, And I was writing, and what the heck? I'll just talk about it openly, like someone, if they read the book, then I'm sorry. But I was writing, and I knew that I wanted something special to happen with this character, and it occurred to me, oh, she's very musical. She's going to go on the Grand Ole Opry. That's what she's going to do. This is going to be great. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to restructure the book, these little spaces in the book, because that's where this is naturally leading. I see it now. She comes from a very, very rough childhood. Her mother committed suicide, all these things. She's going to the opera. This is wonderful. And I made it all work. And I got the manuscript finished. Now, I don't tell Jamie about my manuscript. I don't tell anyone about a manuscript until it's actually done, because if I do, it will change inevitably. I'll say, I don't like this, and I'll do that. And then the book will be, so I could tell if I told the publishers, yeah, I'm writing a book about, the Civil War and such, it would come to them as an elephant living in Birmingham in the late 1940s or something.
Right.
It would be. So I finished this book. Nobody knows what it's about. And the long short of it is, I do a gig in Franklin, Tennessee. And when I'm done, someone says, I think you could do the opera. Would you ever do the opera? I said, yeah, that's funny that you say that. I said that, I doubt that will ever happen to me, but that could be a dream. So, well, let's see what we can do. I might know a guy. And so anyway, that was, time went by, and we got a phone call. I went and I did the opera for the first time. When I was there, both editors on that book were out in the audience, and by that time the book we'd already gone into edits, and actually I think we'd already gone into the last round, so it was ready for proofing. And they were both standing there, or sitting there, and I saw one, and I got up to the microphone, and I said the same words that my character said right over the microphone. And I knew, and I was crying on stage. Just everything was identical to what I had written in that little cabin, the way that it worked, the way that it happened. It was not, it was almost as though in that cabin I had seen a glimpse, of what was supposed to happen to me. And afterward, my editor, we had a big welcome party for everybody who come to the Opry. They'd come from almost every state. Sweet, sweet people who I love. And we had rented this big hall, and it was, I told everybody on the stage, I said, if you come here to see me, I'm going to hug every last one of you. I will be the last one to leave this room. And there were, I think, 1,300 people at the after party. And I hugged necks until 5 a.m. And my suit was so drenched, Jamie said you could see through it. And when I got to my editor, she was crying and I was crying. And she said, I was in your head. I was in your head up there. I knew exactly what you were thinking because you wrote about it. And I did. The whole moment was not just written about, but I was describing what she was feeling and all that. And everything was just, so anyway, there's so much of that happens in books for me that I almost wonder that writing, if it doesn't put you in touch with something higher somehow.
I without a doubt think it does. And until I figured that out, I had a hard time writing because I wrote the Traveler's Gift was the first kind of novel that I wrote, and then and I didn't have a contract with that. I was able to finally sell the Traveler's Gift, and so after that hit, I signed a 3-book deal, and it never occurred to me until I got ready to sit down and start writing the second book. I just panicked. I was like, I don't know how to do this because I don't know how I wrote Traveler's Gift. I'm not sure how I did that. I go back and I read parts of that and I go, I don't even remember writing that. And so it was 3 or 4 books before I figured out that Holy Spirit connection there.
Yeah. I everybody I've talked to, I'll never forget it. After my first fiction book, I was at a book event or something, and I sat on a panel with real authors, and I was the guy who was like we couldn't find anybody else, so here, we'll put this guy up here. What's your name? Sean. All right, Shane, come up here. So I'm sitting on the thing, and the guy says, so how many books you got? I said, well, I just have the one. I said, no, it's not even all that good. And I said, does it get easier as you go? He said, oh no. It gets much, much, much harder.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought, are you serious? And then I realized what he meant. Because once you open it up, the pressure begins,
Yeah.
And it's only those few idiots who figured out how to circumnavigate the pressure who can actually, like you, do it and be open enough to let God do his work. It's because anyway, it's my second book was more difficult, but I enjoyed it more, I think.
I think that, and I believe you'd agree with this, that successful writing, which I've done it, you're certainly in the middle of it, you've done it, but I think it has a lot more to do with discipline. I think talent's a part of it, and I think you can learn to a degree, but I think the discipline to sit down and allow your mind to work on something. I mean, I'm so ADD, it's hard for me to sit anywhere, and so, but
I would agree. I think for me, I could be ADD too, but if I can get into the meditative quality of writing, when the meditative zone, where you're hyper focused, almost hypnotized on if I'm there, then I'm the ideas are happening, and I'm I'm editing little things as I go. Oh yeah, no, not that. And all of a sudden, I'm relaxing into it because I'm not having to work. The muse is there,
Right.
And the only way I can get into that zone is to have a framework, a scheduled framework for myself to that tells myself it's okay to get into that zone here. It's okay to let go of, your other daily stuff for this time. And for me, that's the morning right now, but it's changed. It's been different times of my, different periods of the day in my life. And I'm sure it's going to change the larger my prostate gets, it's going to change, so.
I think the older you get, the more you skew toward morning. I know a
Yeah.
lot of younger writers who are like late night people, but most
My
of
brain
the
quits at around noon.
mine
Uh,
too. And so
it,
I think most of the older guys that I know, or I'll say
yeah,
seasoned, they're early morning people. You know,
it, I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much about this body that I've been put in, in the brain, and the controls that I've been handed, and it's been quite a ride, quite an interesting ride.
when are you heading back to the Opry?
I don't know. Jamie doesn't tell me anything. She tells me nothing. I mean, about
I'll ask Jamie.
4 days ago, she said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to North Carolina and Chattanooga and blah blah blah." And I keep a bag beside my bed, and I live out of that bag. Even when I'm at home, I live out of that bag. And actually, it's gotten to the point where I'm more comfortable in a hotel room than I am in my own house. I like the conveniences of the hotel room. It's silly.
Yeah, I still live out of my overnight bag.
I I uh I don't have kids, so it works for me right now.
How
And
how's your blind dog?
she's good. She's good. She taught me a lesson last week. Last week I learned that if you give that dog a Kong full of peanut butter and she licks all the peanut butter out of it that she can lick and there's still some left, and you give that Kong to another dog, you have committed a grievous sin. And that dog's butt, the other dog, that dog's butt must be kicked. And nothing will stand in her way, not time, not distance.
Eyesight,
Yeah,
nothing.
exactly. So I gave a Kong that had belonged to her to my other dog, Thelma Lou, because Thelma Lou's tongue is considerably larger and she can get to the end of that Kong, get the peanut butter that needs to be got. And my word, Marigold freaked out and she wanted to kick butt, and she wanted to kick butt for about 48 hours straight. We were up till like 3 a.m. She was not going to let it go.
That is funny.
Yeah, she is a scrapper. She's a scrapper, but she had to be, so that's where it comes from. But if you awaken that scrappy part of her, there's nothing that dog cannot be broken. And it's part of me is super proud of that. The other half of me just wanted to go to bed.
I think that is awesome.
That's the first time I've ever seen her do that. She's just so sweet. She's just so soft and kind and sweet. But boy, if you stand in the way of her and some peanut butter and
That
you're a
is
dog.
funny. That is funny. Well, buddy, how can we help you now? What can we do right now at this point? And by the way, the reason I was asking about the Opry thing, let me go back to that,
Yeah.
is because you're going to be a member.
Oh,
If
gosh.
you haven't heard it before, you're hearing it from me. You're going to be a member. I know way too many members of that, and
Well, that would be,
you're going to be a member.
the first time I went, Andy, somebody there had printed out a large, oversized, blown up picture of my dad's face. And they held it up when I got on the stage because, and I walked out there and saw it. And I saw locked eyes with dad. It was so bizarre in a weird, good way, but and I felt it was a wonderful feeling because he would have been over the moon over that.
Yeah.
That would have been the biggest thing in his life to see me there.
That's
And I,
another thing that you and I have in common. My dad never lived to see me do anything.
yeah,
Assuming I've done anything, he
yeah.
never saw it. But
There's a, I think there's a club. Everybody that I know, who I would call a close friend, it's dawned on me when I was in my 30s. I looked around at all of my people that I would consider my people, and none of them had fathers that were present in their life during youth. And most of them didn't even have dads at all. And I thought, that's so bizarre. I didn't set out to choose people like that to be kind of part of my circle, or I didn't, which means maybe they chose me, or maybe just, I think you're part of a club, because
yeah,
you're your own dad for many years, and you can't relate to people who don't know how to be their own dad.
all right.
So that was a real awakening for me. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you about the Opry.
No, no. Your first time that you were on the Opry, I called to find out who was on with you, and John Conley was there. So I called John and I said, "You have to go down the hall. There's a friend of mine that's doing his first thing." And
Oh, he did, and he gave me a pair of rose-colored glasses, and he doesn't know. He didn't know, and so I told him in my book, Will the Circle. This is just one of those things, okay? This is one of those things I was just telling you about. A very pivotal scene centers around his tune, Rose-Colored Glasses. And it's when I'm in a station wagon on the way to Colorado to deposit my father's ashes on the top of Pikes Peak, and I had to pee. My uncle made me pee in a coffee can, and then my uncle went to throw it out the window, and it backsplashed all over his face. And as he was as he was baptized in the name of Sean Dietrich, John Conley's song "Rose-Colored Glasses" was playing, and that was the theme of my life. And when I saw John Conley, I told him that story, and I expected him to kind of react the way you did, but he didn't.
oh no,
He just said, "Well, all right then."
Not everybody has our sense of humor, Sean. Not everybody thinks the same things that we do are funny. So, man, but I'm just telling you're going to spend a lot of time there in the rest of your life.
Well, they are backstage. They are the sweetest people. You would not know that you're not at the First United Methodist Church in eclectic Alabama or something. This is the lady who runs the operations back there, Lemonade. She's just sugar, and they're all so nice. And I have to continue to ask myself, are you really that person? Because they're just so kind. All the performers, they're all so nice, especially like you said, especially the old school performers. The modern performers, there's a different vibe. But
There's
the
a
old,
different vibe.
yeah. But the old school,
Vibe. But those old school guys, and I must have had, because I was working as a comedian back then, and I was doing the National Now all the time. I mean, at least once a month I was on National Now, and then sometimes guest hosting it, and I think that all those guys, I was their friend because I was not competing with them.
yeah.
I mean, they were a little standoffish with each other and sometimes kind of mean to each other.
Yeah.
But they were real nice to me.
Well, I think it's kind of dawned on me that when I go there, I'm nobody, and that's what's so wonderful is that I'm just these guys, they're all somebody. They've all done big things, and they're continuing to do big things. And when they breathe, the tree dies. I mean, they have enormous amounts of clout, and they have entire organizations of people working on them. My wife and I show up in a plumber's van. We hop out, we pull our things in the and put them in the room, and it's just her and I. And I love all the staff members. I love the ushers. I mean, I love those people. I think what you said, no one really no one feels any competition with me. And because of that, I'm able to have a good time because there's some of the younger people, younger performers I can sense, especially the newer, they're really, really nervous and they're really feeling judged. And
Yeah.
while I'm out there posing,
Their entire career rests on this tonight.
yes. And I'm out there asking the cloggers to teach me how to dance, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah. At that homecoming event I was with, I can't remember if I mentioned that off the air or on the air, but last week was at a homecoming taping with Bill Gaither, and like 265, 270 artists in there.
Wow.
And I had the idea, I had the thought right in the middle of it. I said to myself that most of these people, or all these people in this room, they will never be able to feel like I feel right now, because these people will never be able to go into a room and be pretty sure they're the worst singer in the room.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking around nearly 300 people, and I am without a doubt the worst singer in the room. That was very interesting to me.
Well, the thing that I like about this though is I want to be, God help me, because the Lord's hearing this, but I want to be humbled. I want to live and survive it if I can, but I like what comes out of me when I'm taken down several pegs. And so when I'm there, I'm ready. I'm ready to be put in my place, and I don't want to, I don't have anything to offer that they haven't already seen before, that they have seen done so much better. So to me, when I'm there, I'm really just a little kid on the teacup ride. I am just having a ball. I'm enjoying it, and I don't want it to end. And then when it's done, I go home and I think, wasn't that fun, Jamie? I mean, to me, it's just, it really is like Disney World for adults. And that'll probably be the biggest thing I ever do with my life. I can't imagine anything bigger. That every day, that every time I go, I tell my wife, you're watching the greatest thing that's ever happened to me happen in this short span of time. Aside from you, marrying you, there's nothing else. This was it.
Well, wait till you meet Gloria Gaither.
That'll change my life.
I am determined to introduce you to, because she would love you and you will love her.
Well, I love her from afar. I mean, I like them all. We always watch the homecomings, but I've never been to one. And to me, Gloria is Bill is the face and the eye candy, but Gloria is a genius.
Yeah, she's a
to
genius.
Do what she's done. She's a genius.
Yeah,
I mean, I think her IQ must be in the stratosphere.
Yeah, well, and you know that when you talk to her too.
Really?
I have said many times that she's the wisest woman I've ever met. I've got a picture of her on a porch swing behind our house, and her holding her grandbaby Liam, Liam's 20-something years old now, and she was holding Liam, and Polly was sitting on the ground, underneath Gloria, just looking up, listening to Gloria talk. And that's one of my favorite books, just that my wife has that influence.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's one of my favorite photos. So
Wow. No, when I was younger and learning how to play the piano, I had a hymnal, lots of hymnals, but our hymnal that was kind of a modern hymnal. And every tune I'd go to that I thought, I like this one. Yeah, I learned how. Gloria Gaither. Well, God, I really like this one, Gloria Gaither. Well, God, man, that one's really good. Such and such, arranged by Gloria Gaither. Oh, yeah. Wow. Every single one that kept, oh my gosh, just
I don't tease
woman.
Gloria about it because I know how old she is too, but I do tease Bill. I say, dude, you're in the hymnal and you're still alive. How odd is that?
Amazing.
Man. Hey, thank you for taking the time to do this, Sean. I appreciate it. And we want to really move some books for you. And And so,
well, good luck with that.
well, it won't be just this. You know, we'll post some stuff. I'll do some stuff, and so
Well,
we're on your team, brother.
I appreciate that. I have resigned to myself a long time ago that I will be the guy who will be doing this for a long time and still never break 100 copies, or something like that. I'm just not. I know that I'm not. I know what I am. I know that, and I know what I'm not. So, I meet
dude.
people that are like,
the people who read you know who you are too, and the people that haven't read you are about to find out. So, the Will the Circle, that book is one of my favorite things that you've ever done.
Well,
And I can't wait to get a hold of this one.
Well, it ain't. They make great fly swatters, great door stops. I've seen them used to balance wobbly tables. I've seen them in thrift stores with the pages uncolored in.
Huh? Wow.
Yeah, which is a real achievement.
You are a little bit behind me, or a lot behind me in age, and maybe just a hair behind me in career longevity. But I got to tell you, something that's coming to you that you are going to just be shocked at if it hadn't already started. We just stop and marvel here every time we get an email or something in the mail with a picture of a dog and one of my books that this dog has destroyed. I'll bet you we've had 30 of those.
Really?
I mean, I don't know what it is about my books that dogs love or hate, but so just wait, that's coming. They're going to start showing you. And I know you must have gotten to the point where people are mistaking the names of your books as they talk to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, somebody stopped me in the airport just recently, and they shook my hand real vigorously and said, "Can we get a selfie?" I said, "Oh, my God. Thank you. That would be so great." They said, "We loved you in The Hangover. It was so great." I said, well, thank you. And we they posted and they said, "How do you say your name again?" I said, "It doesn't matter, does it?"
You can pronounce Galacado as well.
Yes, they had their moment.
We talked about being humbled and being humble. And one of the first, this was years ago. And one of the first times I came home and somebody had recognized me in airport. And it said, they want to take a picture with me. And I was pretty proud of that. I was pretty excited. I came home, one of my buddies was there, and I told my wife and I told my buddy, they stopped me and my buddy, I never will forget this. This is one of the greatest lines of all time. He said, "Yeah, that's great." He said, "But if you ever get to thinking too much of that, remember, they do the same thing to the guy who wears the Donald Duck suit at Disney World." He said, "So every time you think you're a big deal, somebody taking a picture, just think about wagging your little duck tail there, I've never forgotten that.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful.
All right, man. We're going to have everything we can put on you on the show notes.
Well,
and when the book drops October 7th, is that right?
I think so, yes. I think so. Jamie will know, or whoever you've been talking to.
Okay, so this is gonna,
or Beth.
Yeah, so we're gonna be all over it, and so.
Well, thanks. I don't. Are we still recording?
We can say goodbye and then talk. Let me just say, hey, Sean, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a wonderful pleasure.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you. seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Braille dog biscuits for the cast and crew provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by LoyalFans.com. The sporting world has changed. Athletes used to be all about the team, just like the fans. Dan Marino played for the Dolphins. Dick Butkus played for the Bears. Period. One could be a fan of a team and a fan of a player on that team. We were loyal to the players because they were loyal to the team. First, it changed in the NFL. Now, we just can't remember Brett Favre as a Packer. We have to remember him as a Viking, too. Peyton Manning is no longer just a Colt. He's also a Bronco. We have visions of Joe Namath as the leader of the New York Jets who guaranteed a Super Bowl win and delivered. Unfortunately, we also have the mental image of him stumbling around on old knees as a Ram. Remember? Johnny Unitas as a Charger, Joe Montana as a Chief, Kurt Warner as a Giant. Well, now it's happening at the college level. When we see a freshman make a great play, the question used to be, how good is he going to be as a senior? Now the question is, wonder where he'll be playing as a senior. Join LoyalFans.com, and let's see if we can get a Loyal Players chapter going. After all, high school athletes are next.